to the Law and Crime Network. I'm Angelica Spanos. Thanks for joining us today. We are following 3 live trials and bringing you the latest updates on all of those from the courtrooms here on the Law and Crime Network. All right, so as you can see, the court is going into sidebar right now. Joining us now to understand all of this and break it all down, we have Matt Mangino with us, Law and Crime legal analyst. Matt, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So as we've been following this now, we hear from Jane Doe number 5. She's on the stand right now. Each of these alleged victims has a different story. They all have different timelines. We've heard the nuts and bolts of all of these things. How does Jane Doe number 5, how's her story and how does her credibility measure up with the other of the victims?
Well, you know, her version or her victimization resulted from her allegedly viewing Kellen Winslow exposing himself to her, while they were working out. It's certainly a serious issue. It points to Kellen Winslow's alleged propensity for acting out sexually, but it doesn't rise certainly to the some of the other testimony that we've heard in this case with regard to sexual assault.
And when we're looking at all 5 of these victims, they're all bunched together. They're all in this same trial. Does that make it hard for the defense to separate all of them? What's the impact of that?
Well, I think obviously the more witnesses you have that testify to graphic details of Kellen Winslow either committing assault or doing other sexual things, I think certainly makes it more difficult for the defense to counter all of these. I mean, and you're presented with a situation where you have 5 independent witnesses setting forth their account of an interaction with Kellen Winslow that was inappropriate and criminal. Makes it more difficult for the defense to try to persuade a jury that, hey, these are all fabrications. These are all stories that were made up. They take place over a period of time. Some of them are consistent with regard to his conduct, but all are very damaging in terms of the suggestion that he has been assaultive in many different ways.
And going off that, do you think there's an impact of listening to all of them in sort of this short amount of time? We've heard from them bam, bam, bam.
No, I think that the prosecution, wants to present this evidence as concisely as possible. I think in this situation, when you have 5 separate women talking about their encounter with Kellen Winslow, that you want to present that as quickly and as concisely as possible. Certainly, you could get into very detailed testimony and stretch this out over a period of time. That sometimes has an effect where the jury is kind of turns it off just because it's so involved. Here, hey, we got a good case. We got good witnesses. We have evidence. We want to present it to you. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Make up your mind.
Right. And we just heard from Jane Doe number 5, as I said. The defense got her to say that, she was in this jacuzzi with him. She didn't see anything, not to get too graphic here. And he also brought up the point of this jacuzzi and the foam and how the jets were working and how she couldn't see what was going on beneath that. Good move by the defense.
Well, certainly, you want to, in any way that you can, impeach the testimony of any of these witnesses. You want to have an opportunity to say, hey, based on the circumstances, things are not as clear as you portrayed them during direct examination. And then that, every witness is judged by their credibility, their believability. And if you can cast some doubt on that testimony through cross-examination, then you have some issue of doubt that you can present to the jury at the end of this case.
All right, Matt Mangino, thank you. We want to listen to some of that testimony from Jane Doe number 5. This was from earlier. Let's listen. That was Jane Doe number 5 testifying yesterday. There she's talking about how she believes that Winslow was masturbating. But today the defense sort of discredits her by asking her if she saw anything, and she says, she didn't. She couldn't see because of the foam and the jets, and she also says that she didn't see anything exposed. So, Matt, bringing you back into this, what does this do for her credibility?
Well, I think it goes directly to her credibility. The jury now has to evaluate this witness based on what she said on direct examination and what she admitted to on cross-examination. Certainly, it doesn't appear that the testimony is consistent. If a jury or individual jurors, find that the credibility of a witness is at stake and they no longer believe that witness, essentially they can disregard everything that witness has said. So, attacking successfully the credibility on cross-examination is the key to at least point by point address any doubt that might exist in this case.
Right, and one of the things we also saw was pictures of the gym being put up on screen. We saw images of the machines. We heard sort of visualization of what the area of the gym looked like, that Crunch Fitness you can see there on your screen now. So talking about that and them really painting the image of what went on and what this gym looks like, and then listening to her testimony, do you think the defense got her here?
Well, I think the defense has put her in a position where she's not exactly sure what she observed and didn't observe that day. And certainly the jury now has the opportunity to say, hey, this just doesn't sound consistent. What she told us with some confidence on direct examination, she seems now to back away from on cross-examination. And so, what did she really see? What does she really remember? Is her memory somehow influenced by what she thinks of this particular person? I mean, there's a lot of issues and a lot of conclusions that a jury can draw from a witness whose credibility has been attacked on cross-examination.
All right, so more testimony there. Again, this is live in California, the trial of Kellen Winslow II. Matt Mangino with us today, obviously our law and crime legal analyst. Thanks for being here. Matt, break down with what we've seen so far today. We've got Jane Doe number 5. We've got a big moment for the defense so far, really.
Well, yes. I mean, you have Jane Doe number 5 explaining how she perceived Kellen Winslow exposing himself to her, both on the exercise machine and in the jacuzzi. But on cross-examination, they were able to effectively show that what she said she saw, she actually couldn't see and didn't see, in fact. And I think that, just latest few questions by the defense, I think were also just to point out that there was a logical explanation for why Kellen Winslow would have said, well, this feels good. And, I think that that was an effective cross-examination, and it certainly gives the jurors some doubt as to what, Jane Doe number 5 actually observed. And so I think it's certainly points for the defense.
Absolutely. And another thing they keep bringing up and talking about is the conversation between Jane Doe number 5 and her husband, and when she told her, the timeline of how that all happened, and if this was the man that she saw on TV. Now, when we're thinking of that and listening to that, I kind of can't help but think about the fame aspect of all of this and how that plays in. This guy's a famous athlete. She allegedly had seen him on TV. How does his status play into this trial?
Well, obviously, for sensational purposes, it's important. Whether it plays a role in the trial or not. Again, is something that maybe the defense wants to play up. At some point in this case. I mean, obviously, what is alleged here, to 5 different women, 3 in which he is alleged to have sexually assaulted them, is a serious, serious matter. In one that cannot be looked at. Oh well, this is because this person is a star. But that star presence, that notoriety, people knowing who he is, I think can be a factor when you look at when were these incidents reported, how were they reported, who were they reported to. Those are all important questions.
So again, that is Jane Doe number 5. Matt Mangino with us, a law and crime analyst. Talk to us about Jane Doe number 5 again. What do you think about her case? Is it strong so far?
Well, on her direct examination, it certainly seemed strong. She seemed confident in what she was saying and what she observed and what she perceived Kellen Winslow doing. Cross-examination has been a different story. And I think that the defense has been able to show some flaws in her, at least her recollection or, her interpretation of the circumstances at the time. And I think, this attorney is very effective in his cross-examination because you have to be careful when you're dealing with a victim of a crime on cross-examination. You don't want to seem too aggressive. You don't want to try to belittle or overpower that witness. And I think he's doing a very nice job of drawing what he thinks are inconsistencies in his testimony without appearing to badger or to aggressively go after this witness.
Yeah, when you talk about that, this is because these are alleged victims, and obviously there's a lot of sensitivity surrounding all of this. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, certainly. I mean, these are crime victims. You have to be able to cross-examine them in a way that's not offensive to the jury. It would certainly turn a jury off to aggressively come after this witness and say, "Oh, you're not telling the truth. That's not what you actually saw. Now you're telling us a different story." I don't think that's the approach, and it's certainly not the approach that he's using here. I think he's doing exactly what he needs to do, and that is say, "Hey, tell us what you saw," and then point out the inconsistencies in what she said on her direct examination and what was revealed on cross-examination.
And switching gears, you mentioned the jury. When the jury is weighing in on something as sensitive as this, what's that dynamic? What goes through their heads?
Well, I think jurors take their responsibility very seriously. And the allegations in this case, the testimony that we heard, is very striking. I mean, we have 3 women who are talking about being sexually assaulted and 2 women who had, some sort of sexual conduct in their presence. So the jury is going to be very sensitive to these victims in the way that they portray themselves on the witness stand. We know that anybody who comes before the court as an accused is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And you would hope that the jury understands that their responsibility isn't to make up their mind as soon as they hear the evidence presented by the Commonwealth or presented by the state in this case, but to give the defense an opportunity to present what they can, whether it's through cross-examination or direct testimony of their own.
All right, Matt Mangino, thank you so much. I'm told that the court is resuming now. Again, this is the trial of Kellen Winslow II. This is out in California. Let's take you there live. All right, so back here again, looking like the courtroom has a bit of a malfunction with a machine there. But Matt Mangino's with us. And Matt, so this is Robert, the husband of Jane Doe number 5. We haven't heard much yet, but what do you think so far?
Well, I think he's going to have to explain either on direct or cross-examination why he didn't pursue the matter further. I know, obviously, he said that he respected his wife's position, but why not report it? Especially if it happens a second time. I'm anxious to hear what his explanation is here. And if you're not going to report it, why report it now? So I think those are things that either the defense is going to explore on cross-examination, or the prosecution is going to have to put out there right now through direct.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It seems interesting because there was 2 instances with his wife of kind of this, lewd behavior from him, and he, I guess, delayed on reporting it. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. It looks like we can't go live back to the courtroom yet, so let's continue our discussion here. I mean, why bring in the husband at all? How does this help support Jane Doe number 5's case?
Well, maybe it is for the very purposes that you and I have just been discussing, and that is, why wasn't this reported immediately? It happened twice, as Robert has just testified, within maybe 2 or 3 weeks of each other. This supports the fact that she told her husband about it, but why didn't they go forward until either file a formal complaint with the club, or contact the police?
And with Jane Doe number 5, we know she is a 77-year-old woman, and comparing her to the other alleged victims here, she happens to be the older of them. Many people, saying that there's sort of an MO to build with these victims. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, if we have a defendant who's allegedly sexually assaulted 3 women, and this is not the only person, Jane Doe number 5, who he's exposed himself to. I mean, we're talking about someone who has possibly some, mental health problems that need to be dealt with as well, and that have an impact on this overall. It would be out of character to have 3 women who said, I was sexually assaulted, and a 77-year-old woman who says that he exposed himself to me. But you have 2 different victims who said that there was exposure, and 3 who said there was sexual assault. That really paints a picture. And of course, these are all allegations, but it paints a picture of someone who's troubled.
All right, thank you, Matt. We're going to go live to court right now. Again, this is Robert, the husband of Jane Doe number 5. He is on the stand right now. You will only see his hands. Let's listen. In California, we are going to continue to follow this trial of Kellen Winslow II. Stay with us after this break.